We learned yesterday we can learn from the 10 plagues that God smote the Egyptians with. We can learn a positive lesson. First of all, what was the whole purpose? What's the idea of this story about the Jews going out of Egypt? Why did God have to have 10 plagues and make big miracles? And Moses had to go into Paro and warn him, and Paro didn't listen to the warning, and God hardened his heart. Why didn't God just change Paro's mind? One day Paro could go to sleep, have a dream. His father could come to him in a dream and say, let the Jews go. Or the Jews are okay. Don't let them rule. It happened just a few generations before. Joseph was a Jew, ruled all of Egypt, ruled the whole world. Why didn't they have to be so difficult and so, if you want to say, so extravagant? That God made all these miracles, and the Jews, they didn't want to go out, and they sacrificed a sheep, and then they did go out. Finally, and they wanted to go back, and the sea split, and bread rained from heaven, water came from a rock. Why do all these miracles? And even more, if you look in the Maimonides, he says that really the Jews did not believe in God because he did all these miracles. And God didn't do the miracles in order to convince the Jews to believe in him, to impress the Jews. He did the miracles because that was necessary to do in order to get the Jews out. And in fact, says the Rambam, the Rambam is Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, Moshe bar Maimon, that a sorcerer could have done the same tricks. Could be that there were no sorcerers that could rule over a certain size or whatever, but that still was, there just didn't happen to be anyone at that time. But all those miracles that God did do not necessarily prove the existence of God. And when it comes down to it, nothing proves the existence of God. God personally appeared to all the Jews in Mount Sinai, and their souls jumped out of their bodies, and just a few days later, 40 days later, they worshipped the golden calf. They all participated somehow or other in the worshiping of the golden calf. So that's exactly the point. The whole essence of Judaism is that the whole world should realize there's God and that they should feel responsible to God. But feeling responsible to God is not so simple. It's not a simple thing that you can cause it from the outside. It has to be done from the inside. It has to be done by a strong decision to defy and to transform and to improve nature. And it has to be a constant decision. It's not that you make it one time and you're in. It's a thing that a person has to put himself into this mode, constantly deciding, I'm going to go, not going to listen to my nature, I'm not going to listen to the nature around me, I'm going to listen to the creator of all nature and improve it. That's called going out of Egypt. Egypt was nature. They controlled nature. They were very spiritual people, and the Jews went out of that. Which is one reason why God didn't leave the Jews in Egypt and just decimate the Egyptians, or after the 10 plagues, the Jews could have just stayed there, because God doesn't want a nation of leaders. He wants a nation of servants, but servants to Him. And if you're a servant of the King of the universe, then you're attached to the King of the universe. But God does not want the Jews to stay in Egypt and become leaders and show the whole world this. You want to be successful? Believe in the God of Israel. That's not our message. Our message, we're not trying to sell success. All we're trying to do is sell, if you want to call it sell, is truth. To realize who you are and why you're here. So in order to do that, it's a process. It's not a 1, 2, 3 thing, it's a process. And that process, we can learn from what it says in the Torah, and especially what happened, in the going out of Egypt. All the plagues are all lessons that we can learn on positive things attitudes that we must take on ourselves. So the last time, if you remember the last class, we said the first of the plagues was turning water into blood. Water, especially the water of the Nile River. The water in general is coldness, which is the opposite of Jewishness. It's the opposite of holiness. Holiness is warmth, excitement, dynamic. And water is being cold to anything that's godly, cold. Being cold to all this. And the water of the Nile River, especially because the Nile River was their god. It was the god of success. The Nile River provided them with all their success, and these people bowed down to success. And they were cold to godliness. That's what water is. So first plague was God turned the water into blood. That the coldness of the Egyptians to Hashem, to God, to Torah, to the truth, suddenly it transformed to be warm. That's the beginning. First of all, you got to be warm. Even if the warmth manifests itself as curiosity. You're really curious. What is this Jewish business? Is it really true? Is it really God? Could it be God really creates me? God really is good. He gave the Torah. Is this really true? Curiosity. It turns you on. You're interested. That's the first step. First step. And then a little bit deeper thinking, God is really good. God is really wonderful. Not to be cold. Let's see. Hey, I think we're up to hey, right? Mm-hmm. The Torah madgisha. The Torah stresses. At sugamayim, what type of water was it? Amayim asher bayar. It was the water that was in the river. Mitzurim shtei sugim b'krirus. There's two types of coldness. We did this yesterday, but we can do it again. Coldness to the world. And the second, Krirut ben Kedusha, coldness to holiness. Sheyat Chalad, this is the beginning of all selfishness, egotism. Kenegdam Kayamas, there's also two types of water. There's water that comes from above, and there's water that comes from below. Water that comes from above, that's miracle water. What do you mean miracle? Rain is a miracle. Rain is a miracle. You can look at it naturally. You can look at it as it's a tremendous miracle. And you see when there's a drought and there's no rain, and everybody prays and prays and prays, and suddenly the rain, people are tremendously happy. Without rain, there's no world. So there's water that comes from above. Matara shamayim tishtemayim, like it says in Israel, from the water, from the rain of the heavens, you drink water. Rain comes from heaven. There's also another type of water, which is water which comes from under the earth. That's coldness of klippa, coldness of selfishness. You're cold to anything that doesn't obviously benefit you immediately, physically, or maybe spiritually, with music. If it doesn't benefit you, you're cold to it. Me nilus sheikhas l'shogasheni. The water of the Nile River is relevant to the second type of coldness that comes from the below. Therefore, it says by the Nile River, shehu ola likroto. It says that when Jacob came into Egypt, that the Nile River rose up to meet him. What does it mean, rose up? Because the whole essence of the Nile River is that it comes from below. Makor Meimav is the water that's under the earth. The water of the Nile, Hakrirus Vadishut, the Kedusha, namely coldness and indifference to godliness, to holiness, Shimshu Ka'avodah Zorah, this was the idolatry of Egypt. They worshipped this indifference to holiness. Mishum Kach, therefore, now also we have to stress, the Egyptians were very spiritual people. Spirituality is not godliness. Spiritual is a creation. Physical is another creation. The spiritual world is all the other religions in the world deal with spirituality. They call it God. They call it, but there's all levels of spirituality. Nowhere is this seen better than in the Eastern religions, where there's different levels and different levels and levels. And the highest level, right? That's all called spirituality. God creates the spiritual. So spirituality usually doesn't make you very emotional, or like we said, dynamic. Most of the Eastern religions are, the goal is to be as quiet and calm, and to be, not get married and not have any the interruptions, and let the water settle and the river, so everything will be clear, and just don't do anything and don't say anything and don't think anything. And eventually, if you're like really lucky, you can become a plant. And if you're really, really lucky, then you can become a rock.
Are most meditations with the Gentile world involve trying to clear your mind of everything, that you should think of nothing?
Yeah, it depends. Listen, as a method, as a help, a tool to help, it could be useful. Because the Rebbe once had a speech about this. The world is a very confusing place. And if these meditation practices can be used in order to clear your confusion and your attachment to meaningless things, that's very good. It's a good tool. But to use it as a goal, of course, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like saying that because an El Al plane brought me to Israel, right, or Lufthansa plane, so therefore I'm going to stay in planes my whole life. Because planes are the greatest thing in the world. Nothing like a plane. It's the same thing. Meditation is just a tool to calm a person down so that he can do something. He can fix up the world. The Torah tells you how to do things and fix up the world. But the Torah does not tell you how to fix your tire on your car. And it doesn't tell you what to do if a person has measles, or if a person has his business is not succeeding. How to be a salesman, how to be this. The Torah does tell you, though, that you have to be, your car should be in working order. Go find someone who knows how to fix it. Go to a good doctor. Pray to God, right, that you should learn how to fix the tire, and that the doctor should be accurate, and that your business should succeed. And you have to be an honest businessman, a good businessman. You have to eat properly, but don't go crazy about it. Because the goal is not to be healthy, and the goal is not and to be calm. The goal is to serve God, to do whatever God wants. But you can't do that if you're not healthy and calm. Can't do it. So therefore, these meditation things, they have their medicinal benefits, and if used properly. There were people in Chabad that tried to do it also. I don't know if anybody really succeeded. Could be they did, but I don't know if they did. They tried to use. It was a letter from the Rebbe. I saw the letter. The Rebbe had, because in those days there was transcendental meditation. It was very popular. 60s, 70s. It was very, very popular. And people saw this as a goal in life. You could eventually get to the point you could fly, you could float, which would be, it's very beneficial as far as, saving money from the trips. But it's cold up there, and the service is terrible. You can't get any, you want to...
Those people are a little mishuggah.
Yeah.
I saw, they talked about how they would float, and I saw a demonstration, I guess, some of the top guys who really achieved this level. Basically, they crossed their knees, and they would sort of like bounce up and down a little bit. They call this floating.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Anyway, I don't know. I never really saw it as a goal. Like to float, maybe, Okay. Vav. This is where we're up to. The water transformed to blood. Blood is chiyunis. Blood is vital. Ki adamu nefesh, like it says, blood is the soul. But Makam Kriros, instead of coldness, you want to serve God properly, you really want to serve God, so instead of being cold and like super calm, you have to have warmth and life. Everybody in their own way. Doesn't mean you have to jump around, you have to be gymnastics, you have to be acrobatic. But it doesn't mean you have to be very positive, and you have to take life. How do you say, take the life easy? But you should take your responsibility very seriously. Seriously, but very positive. It's very positive. And Demine Ubei Avu Lashade Ben Narga, that from the forest itself, right? A person, let's say, he's walking in the forest, is very confused. Where do you go? So one way of going through the forest is if you can chop down some trees and make a way. So how do you chop down trees? With an axe that has a handle. Where does the handle come from? From the forest. So that the forest itself can be the tool that can get you out of the forest. It says from the forest itself comes the wood into the metal that you can help him to chop down. So it is also, so now we can understand why does it say in the beginning that the water transformed to blood on the dry land. The dam ala yabasha, on the dry land. Why does it have to say it happened on the dry land? Just say that the water became blood. Why do you have to say the water became blood on the dry land? Why? Because the dry land is something also bad. Dryness. Dry. It's not even alive, not wet at all. Nothing clings. So it says, not only did he make the river turn it from cold to warm, but he even made the dry land warm. Dry land is what's dry. Dry means nothing sticks. Nothing. You're not interested in anything. Everything is dry. It says even the water that was on the dry land became warm, became blood. So what's it come to say? A Jew has to be interested. He has to be alive. He has to go out of himself, move, mobile. He has to want to benefit others. Motivated. Zion. Between these four different types of life, domem, someach, chayim, medaber, mineral, plant, animal, and speaking, in a human. Harikachol shemuetas midas achayos, the less life, the lower dimension of life, shebesuv mesem kam rochoku mikadusha. So it's further from holiness. Shechena kadusha yechayos, because like we said, holiness is life. Holiness is dynamic. Kamor, like we said, suga domem, this, the aspect of the world called mineral, material, rocks, who amirchak biyoter, this is the farthest level from holiness. Right? When a person dies, what does he become? He becomes dust. La'acharab, afterwards, a higher dimension of life is plant. Afterwards, a higher dimension is animal. Kain barba olam. So it is also, there's four spiritual worlds that correspond to these four types of life. There's four spiritual dimensions, if you want to call it. The highest of all and the most encompassing of all is Atzilus. Then after that is Bria, then Yetzira and Asiya. It's something like, the Rebbe once explained it, if you want to explain it conceptually, like in geometry, they have a point and a line, and a plane and a cube. So a point is nothing. According to geometry, a point is just where two lines intersect, and a point itself has no dimensions at all. No height, no width, no depth. Then there's what's called a line. A line hasn't got any depth and hasn't got any height, but it has length. How many points are there in a line? Infinite. Infinite. You can divide a line into infinite number of points, because a point has no dimensions. Mm-hmm. It just shows that it's here and not there. So you can, and then we have a plane. A plane it has two dimensions to it. It has height and length. How many lines can be drawn on an infinite number of lines? So you have an infinite number of points in a line, an infinite number of lines in a plane. And then we have one more dimension, which is called a cube. This is all conceptual, of course. A cube has an infinite number of planes in it. So you can theoretically slice a cube infinite number of times. Like you can divide a number infinite number of times, right? So there's an infinite number of points in a line, an infinite number of lines in a plane, an infinite number of planes in a cube. Right? So each one of these dimensions is infinitely greater than the one below it. Infinitely greater. So that's something like these four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. That corresponds also to the four different types of creations: human, plant, human, animal, plant, and material, rocks, mineral. In other words, the life which is in a human being is incomparable to that of an animal. Right? You can talk to an animal all day, try to explain it. The most simple idea, they won't understand you, an animal. They can understand from, maybe they learn certain sounds that means certain things. The same thing, an animal can compare to a plant. And a plant can compare to a rock. The Rebbe has also a beautiful sikh about that. The more mobile a thing is, the more life it has. A human being can move out of himself, can express ideas to others, so he can go out of himself. An animal can't do that, but an animal can move around. It's not attached to the ground. A plant, on the other hand, is attached to the ground, and a rock can't move at all. The four types of life are Don, Sameach, Chai, and Medaber. Medaber, speaking, humans, Hari Kachol, Kachol Shemuatas Midas Achayas, the less level of life that there is in any one of these four types, Kain Rechoku Mikadusha, so it is far from holiness. Shechen Kadusha, because we said that holiness is life. Suga Domem, minerals, Umrachok Bioter is furthest away from holiness. Lacharov, afterwards, Boat Someach, comes plants. Afterwards comes animals. Kain Bar Bolam was also in the four worlds. Atzilus, that corresponds to human. Bria, that corresponds to animals. Yetzirah is plants, and Asiya is mineral. Hari Olam Asiya, the lowest world. Shabo Hara Gover, the lowest world, which is the world where there is the least amount of life, or we can say the least amount of visible godliness. Hu Beduzmas Domen, this is the world of Asiya, is like the world of minerals, right? Not alive. Mayim, Vadam, water and blood, Misamlim Karirus, they indicate coldness. That the Chamimus shall cold, Bechamimus Shebesuga Domim. If so, what is warmth in mineral? Avogam Babali, I'm sorry. Hamayim Vadam, water and blood both show mineral. Water is mineral, cold. Blood is mineral, warm. Blood. Mineral. Blood hasn't got any intelligence. Blood hasn't got any ability to move on its own. Blood doesn't grow. Right? It's like mineral. Like a rock. But also, there are also animals that are cold. What's the coldest of the animals? The coldest of the animals is a frog. Moving shekan mesamlim biyichud et akrirus. This is the coldness of an animal. Coldness of an animal that comes from the water. Among the 10 plagues, one of the 10 plagues was frogs. Why in the world did God pick frogs? There are poison frogs, but better take snakes. That would be a good plague. Why frogs? Sheretz Yeshiva Ohr Tmimim, like it says that the sea started swarming with frogs, like fish in the 6 days of creation. Sfardim Agmamim Ubenaros, that frogs came in the swamps and in the rivers. The Gemara in the Midrash, it says that when a scorpion wants to cross a river, that's what it says in the Gemara and the Talmud. It says that when a scorpion wants to cross over a river, now it says that a snake, its bite is hot, and a scorpion, its sting is cold. It's a cold poison. It says when a scorpion wants to go over the water, mazminin lo tzfardeya, that he waits for a frog, umoshivin oto aleh, and the scorpion sits on the frog, and it goes over the river. Does this really happen in the physical world? I don't know, but nevertheless, that's what it says in the Gemara. That's what it. Why? As akra misamel tevashel otzim krios. A scorpion is coldness. Ella shebakol zot, nevertheless, eino bechinas mayim. It's not as cold as water. Shehem ben nigud gomer alaish. The water is really the opposite of fire. So water is even colder. Lochin, therefore, it cannot go into the water. Water is too cold for a scorpion. Vilu what's fardeya, but a frog, he briatamayim, because frog comes from the water. So the frog is so cold by its nature that water doesn't bother it. Right? A scorpion at least has enough warmth that the water bothers it, but the frog, hipchu muchlat l'leish, is the total opposite of fire. Kach yuvan amasupar, so there's the frogs. What do the frogs do? They jumped into the ovens. It says the frogs jumped into the ovens. Why does the Torah have to tell us that the frogs jumped into the ovens? What do we care? It says the frogs jumped everywhere. They were all in the mishkavcha. It says they were on the beds. They were everywhere. So they were in the fire in the ovens. Why is this so important that the Torah, God's holy Torah, has to tell us that the frogs jumped into the ovens? What do we care? Chazal Malamdim, we learn from this that the frogs, because they were commanded by God, they had self-sacrifice. They didn't care about themselves. The coldest of the animals is a frog. Animals cannot stand temperature which is not according to their bodily temperature. Therefore, a scorpion can't go across the water, but a frog can. It's so cold. When God told the frogs jump into the ovens, so the frogs did it. This is totally opposite their nature. What are they going to get out of it? It was painful. It was awful, right? More painful than waking up in the morning or staying up another couple minutes to finish learning chitas, right? That's also painful. It's also painful. Stay up a couple more minutes to close your mouth, not to say lashon hora, not to look in a place. It's also painful, right? But it's nowhere near as painful as a frog jumping into an oven, and he had to jump in. It's not that God threw him in. Because God commanded that the frog should come, and all of Egypt, therefore he commanded the frogs, go into everywhere in Egypt, everywhere. I don't want to have a place in Egypt where there's no frogs. Therefore there were frogs that jumped into the ovens. There were no frogs that said, listen, maybe Freddie will jump in the oven. I don't want to jump. I got a little bit of a cold today. Every frog they saw an oven, they jumped into the oven. But we have to explain this. Why? Why didn't this not happen with the other plagues? For instance, there were fleas, there were wild animals, arov. Why doesn't it say over there that they jumped into the ovens? Like we said before, now we can understand that this is the ultimate level of Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. There is no animal, no creation that is as cold as a frog. And specifically, the frogs jumped into the ovens. Mina katzeh la katzeh, from one extreme to the other. At Sfardim boim yamayim, frogs come from the water, and nevertheless they went into the ovens.
The frogs were also the only of the plagues where when the plague ended, they all died.
All the frogs died?
Yeah, they were heaped up and made the land stink.
Yeah, right, that's right, yeah, it says that's right. But there were others, I mean, that they...
This was a big self-sacrifice. This was what they were doing by jumping into the ovens.
You know, it's piled up. The frogs had a purpose. What? Their purpose was, first of all, to make life unbearable for the Egyptians, to show the Egyptians who's the boss. But finally, it was to break the egotism of the world. The egotism of the Egyptians was mainly that they were cold to Kedusha. They were cold to holiness. The frogs came as to say to the Egyptians, aren't you ashamed of yourselves? We're colder than you are, and we're jumping into ovens which are hotter than the Jews are.
They martyred themselves.
It's not, listen, it's a matter of martyring themselves, but it's also a matter of not thinking about martyrdom. Only thinking about what God wants, I'm going to do it. You do that, you're gonna get burned up. So, well, I never thought of that. Yeah, well, maybe I'm going to do what God wants. But they weren't thinking about, yes, I don't care, I will go to frogs heaven.
No, I'm sure they weren't thinking about that, but they were just so influenced by what
God said, right?
To do that's how they ended up.
Like we said, frogs indicate coldness.
Yeah. Interesting.
They went into the ovens. They went into ovens in the hot places. They came. Not only did they come to the ovens to show that they were willing to die, but they came also to cool off the heat. They went into the ovens because there's bad type of heat also, and they came to cool us off. They jumped in the oven because God told them to do. Their nature is cold. Ovens represent heat, which we said heat is wonderful for holiness, but we know too well that there's heat of selfishness also. They came to put out the heat and the excitement of egotism, of klipa. So there is also, on the opposite side, also coldness, right? You ever see there's these videos, movies of the Nazi conventions in Nuremberg? They always did everything in Nuremberg in the 30s, and you see the look at the people's eyes, tears in the women's. They were so excited, they were so wonderful. That's called heat. We're going to destroy the world, we're going to take over countries, we're going to show the world. But klipa is true. Klipa, selfishness, is coldness to holiness. But in order that klipa, that selfishness should be complete, there also has to be something like holiness also. And that is what? Like it says, like a monkey in front of a person. So therefore, there has to be heat for this world. A lot of times people, they get cold to Judaism. They say, well, what am I going to do? Oh, they see their friends, they're so excited, they're going to the nightclub, they're so excited, they're going to some movie, they're going to, who knows what they're going to do. Things that are the opposite of common sense and holy, but they're excited. You see people are excited. Oh, that's what I want to do. Anything is bad. That's why it says, the Baal Shem Tov said that depression is not a sin, but it brings to all sins. It's the doorstep for all sins. Because a person gets depressed, he feels cold to the world. He doesn't want to live. There's no reason for him. He just feels empty. He'll do anything to get out of that feeling. So he goes to the heatness, the heat and the warmness of idolatry or of the. So the frogs, because of their self-sacrifice, came to cool off this bad heat also. So the frogs did two things. First of all, the sign that the frogs were willing to sacrifice their lives for Hashem and do the opposite of their nature. And the other thing is also it served to cool off the heat, the evil heat of the Egyptian ovens. What is the teaching for all this? We won't be able to finish, but what is the teaching for all this? The teaching for all this is like this. In order to be rid and to separate yourself from Egypt, Anna bedugma zo zigam yetzias Mitzrayim the kedusha avora miduda al pi tam v'das ach ikar chashuva harya yetzia mitzrayim delumazeh. The Rebbe said the main thing of going out of Egypt is going out of bad things, leaving bad things. The Rebbe said, but don't think that that's the end of it. Once you stop doing bad things, then you're free. You're out of Egypt. It's not so. Going out of Egypt is a constant process. And a person has to go out of also the good things he does. How? To make them better. A person always has to continue to be improving more and more. So just take a simple example. A person wakes up in the morning, he puts on tefillin and he prays. Right? But it's good. But you're just saying the words. There's deeper meaning to the words. There's a simple meaning to the words. Then there's a little bit deeper than that. There's Kabbalistic meaning to the words. There's Chassidic meaning to the words. That's also a level, deeper and deeper ideas. But that's really also only the beginning. Even deeper than that is getting excited that these ideas also affect your heart. Well, then prayer is a whole different thing. And that's also just the beginning. Then these ideas and these feelings, we have to see how long does it last you in the day, so that your conduct in the daytime is also excited about the creator of the universe, and to make the world a vessel for the creator of the universe. So just a simple thing like saying Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha can be levels and levels and levels of deepness to doing good. That's also called going out of Egypt. First of all, what does a person have to do? Warm. He has to be warm. The beginning of all evil is coldness, depression. What are they called? Not caring. Ambivalence. Oh, that's the word. Someone can say in himself, what's so wrong if I'm not so excited? I do all the commandments, so what's the big deal? Harry, in the end, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'll just do it cold. I'll do it cold. Says a Rebbe, you should know that it's not so. It is impossible that a person can be two things. Namely, not to be excited about holiness, and also not to be excited about selfish and egotistical things. It won't work that way. Eventually something in the immediate world is going to make you excited. Because the ambivalence and coldness and holiness automatically bring the opposite. Therefore, the Yetzer Hora puts special efforts into cooling a person off. What should we do? What's the antidote to that? The antidote is excitement, craziness of holiness. To be excited about Torah, to be excited about mitzvahs, to be excited about the Creator. And that you can only accomplish by means of thinking, trying to understand. And when that happens, God will definitely help. When you make the decision and open yourself up, God will help, because after all, you have to remember that God is the one that took us out of Egypt.